views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
This show's audio was via a Skype call.
Get fired up for Spirit Fire Radio with your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer. Get ready to shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in these modern times. Bring purpose to your life through practical spirituality and add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Spirit Fire Radio. My name is Steve Kramer. It's a delight to be with you and a delight to be joined by my co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Steve. Great to be here.
It is indeed, and beautiful that we are going to be talking about compassion this week. This is our show during the holiday season, so it seems like compassion is something we all think about during the holidays of our fellow human being. At least we would hope so. So today we're going to continue the conversation on cosmic relations, of being a cosmic citizen, and looking at qualities and looking at them from the human perspective, but also the perspective of being a cosmic citizen. So cosmic relations and compassion. Sounds pretty good for this holiday week, huh, Dorothy?
It sure does.
All right. So a quote. Would you like to start us off today with a quote? I always enjoy that.
Well, actually, Steve, I'm going to share several quotes that I thought were relevant for today. The first is from author Schopenhauer. He writes, "Compassion is the basis of morality." And I think that's really interesting. You know, I think we're going to be talking today about how compassion is the feeling that connects us to everyone. And so that sense of commonality is what produces moral behavior in the moral compass.
Nice.
The next one is by Albert Einstein, and it's a little bit longer, but I think it's really relevant. He writes, "A human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty." And Steve, that's one of the best descriptions I've seen of what being a cosmic citizen means to me. And widening our circle of compassion.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful, and even expanding to include the whole of the cosmos. I mean, that's where not just the whole of nature, although we would consider the cosmos to be a part of nature, right? If we're looking at nature, that's included, right?
Right. That's right. We would hope so. Although I think we tend to limit ourselves to this planet Earth, but yes, absolutely it is. And then the third one is from the Dalai Lama. He writes, "Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive." So I think that these three quotes can set us up nicely for our discussion of compassion as a core energy in our cosmic relations.
Yes. I love that you just said the word energy too, because we say it so much that everything is energy. And what came to mind as you were reading the Einstein quote was that it really is, if everything is energy and we are quite literally formed of the relationships of various qualities and distinctions, right? Like aggregates within the cosmos, which is atoms. We are simply a relationship of atoms to atoms that makes molecules, and molecules to molecules that make cells, and cells and cells that make tissues and organs and organisms. And then you go on to even thinking of communities and ecosystems, to the whole life on Earth, to sort of a biosphere as an organism, and even a solar system, a galaxy. As you keep going out, it's all about relationship. In the material world, it can't be anything but that. And those relationships then have a certain quality to them, as you and I have a relationship, and it's got a quality, not unlike the quality of the relationships to cells in my body. So it's interesting, that the Einstein quote just brings it forward, that it really is about relationship. And so for me, that right relationship or productive relationship or harmless relationship then is what is behind compassion in a way.
That's right. But Steve, I feel compelled to just interject that we are so used to using language that reflects the tangible.
Right.
So we talk about atoms and that kind of thing, but actually our base nature is wavelengths. It's not a concrete atom. It's not that. And to me that's important, because if you think of atoms as discrete particles, then you can be, kind of touching up against another atom. You can be clustered with other atoms to form, larger molecules and so forth. But there still is that boundary, right? But if you think of us as wavelengths, we have the ability to intermingle our wavelengths. And in fact, our energy, if you just think about walking into a room of people, and some of those people are giving off very loving energy and some are giving off really hostile energy, you can feel it right away. There's that intermingling of energy that lets you know what's going on. We're not used to thinking of ourselves that way, but I know, Steve, you do a lot of work in terms of healing from that perspective. So I just would invite you to comment.
Well, for sure. And it all comes back to the heart, which is what I find so interesting as well, that it is about achieving harmony or balance, or at least from our perspective, noticing where, as you say, you walk in a room and there's certain wavelengths that are, in a sense, bumping up against each other, or we're picking up a vibration that is different than perhaps the rest of the room. There's a distortion, meaning something is looking, feeling different, perhaps out of place, not necessarily a judgment on that. We tend to put judgments on those things, but that it is the relationship of, and again, I don't mean to bring it back to the material, but of the parts to the whole. And it is the relationship of those parts to the whole and the space between, which is what you're talking about, which is the waves. Waves are created because there are points that are creating waves, that are creating impulses that send vibrations that create a particular wave. So it's about creating harmony, energy work, working with the energy system or the subtle systems, the intangible aspects of our being. It is about creating relationships that are in harmony, or at least taking a look at where those relationships are disharmonious and are creating, for instance, feelings that are not so nice, or physical symptoms that arise. But it's all about that relationship. It's all about
absolutely
creating harmony, really, is what it comes down to. And Dorothy, I love that you said after the first quote, you said that compassion. Oh, you might have to conjure that up again. You said it's the feeling that sort of you related feeling to interconnectedness. And I thought that for all that we've covered in the last many months, I think it is the joyful freedom or feeling that arises as we start to acknowledge the truth of our interconnectedness and the capacity that interconnectedness, the capacities that are inherent to it. Do you get what I'm trying to go at? That the feeling arises because it's fact, that the feeling arises because we are all interconnected. And as we start to practice compassion, we feel good because we are aligned with the true nature of the cosmos, which is harmonious, which perhaps I'm putting this on it, which is relation.
That's true. And I just want to raise a caution because sometimes people experience what they label as compassion or express what they label as compassion in a way that it actually distances themselves from other people. It's like, I'm fine, poor you. I recognize that there's a problem here. Whereas to me, true compassion is feeling that common human experience. And I would say from that first quote, what comes to my mind is that idea of being able to walk in the other's shoes.
Yes.
To really feel yourself into the other's experience, as opposed to creating, the boundary that distances you. And that, to me, we've talked about moral compass, from time to time as being so critical, and the lack of moral compass as creating many of the problems that we experience. And to me, it's that being able to put yourself in the place of the other, to walk in the other's shoes, to really feel what it is that they are experiencing and being moved by that. That's what strengthens our moral compass, because we can't then, if we're really feeling that, we can't act in a way that is violent towards the other. In order to be violent, we have to separate ourselves from somebody else. But if we see ourselves as truly connected, truly all part of the one life, or whatever term you want to use for that engulfing energy field that we are all part of, that is what leads us to ethical moral behavior.
And Dorothy, as you've often said on the show, that there's an action component to compassion. Whenever this comes up in discussion, I always notice that in your languaging around it, there is movement and action, and you even get that with this idea of the moral compass. Morality is an act. We act according to our moral compass, and so with compassion, I always appreciate you bringing that action component. That it's not just in the mental sphere of, oh, I see you. Yes, I understand what you're going through over there. That's not really
right.
consistent, But I feel, I as a human being feel and understand and am moved by your position, and in joining in that empathy, can we move to changing that, to bringing harmony to that situation? That, there is where that action component goes in. Dorothy, before we get going, we're already at our first break. So a wonderful introduction, listeners. Stick around. We're going to continue this conversation on cosmic relations and compassion after these words.
Stay juicy. Tune in to Your Juicy Love with me, Una Drake, co-hosting monthly with Dr. Pat, and every second Monday at 12 p.m. on Transformation Talk Radio. My show, Your Juicy Love, helps you find the dynamic, life-affirming love you've always wanted. Transform your relationships and bring peace, joy, and juicy, juicy love to planet Earth. For more information, visit unadrake.com.
Welcome back, listeners, to Spirit Fire Radio. Love to say that it being Spirit Fire Radio is a collaboration. It is a cooperative co-creation between Spirit Fire and the School for Esoteric Studies. And both Dorothy and I represent her here, in a way, representing each. And Dorothy, it'd be wonderful if you could tell our listeners a bit about the School for Esoteric Studies.
Thanks, Steve. The School for Esoteric Studies is an educational nonprofit. You can find out more about us at esotericstudies.net. We provide training to persons who have a spiritual practice that they want to deepen. And we do this through meditation, study, and service. In addition to our individual training, we have a number of group activities. We have among them this whole initiative to reach out to other like-minded organizations and work in collaboration with them. And I'm so delighted that we have this collaboration with Spirit Fire to create Spirit Fire Radio. And if you belong to an organization that would like to work with us, please look on our website at esotericstudies.net at the section on intergroup collaboration.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dorothy. A wonderful organization, and Spirit Fire is so delighted to be working with the School for Esoteric Studies. And listeners, again, that website is so chock full of amazing information. I say that on almost every show because every time I visit your website, I'm just moved and always intrigued and enjoy reading so much valuable information there. So Spirit Fire is an educational nonprofit as well. We are focused on generating awareness, educating people on the importance of spirituality, consciousness, awareness in their everyday lives. We do that through mainly our meditation practice, which is called the Practice of Living Awareness. That is an online meditation practice. We upload new meditations all week long. We do that in rounds, and one round leads to the next. So basically, we're always meditating and offering wonderful meditation podcasts for meditation training. We have our own meditation center in Western Massachusetts. We also offer online classes, online programs. So you can find out more about Spirit Fire at spiritfire.com and about our retreat center and the meditation practice as well. Wow. All right, Dorothy. So just before our first break, I could tell you were gonna say something. I interrupted you. So if you'd want to continue, that would be great.
You have a very good intuitive sense, Steve. I was going to pick up on what you were just saying, which is that there is an interesting distinction between compassion and empathy. Empathy is experiencing what somebody else is experiencing. Having that identification, but it doesn't necessarily have an action component. And I'm so glad that you underscored the action component, Steve, because compassion involves both empathy and a response. And all too often, we have thoughts, we chat, we see things that need to be done or ways that we could be helpful, but we don't necessarily put that into action. And so it doesn't actually mean anything until we have acted on it. And so that's a very important part of experiencing compassion.
Yes, indeed. One thing I was thinking about in terms of compassion and cosmic relations was, if you think of what it would take, the prospect of worldwide love and compassion, goodness, you look at the state of, I sometimes can just look out into my smaller circle, but you think, look at the state of humanity, and it seems like a bit of a tall order, wow. Thank goodness for those organizations and folks that are out there really talking about this, really breaking it down so people can put it to use and at least reflect on how much is compassion a part of my day to day, and could it be more, especially toward the end of the year, this time of year, our hearts are open, those connections are all reinforced, and you realize, sometimes at the holidays you think, I wish, I look back at the year and think, perhaps I could have done more or seen certain people more or helped out in these situations more. So it's a good time to consider it. But it seems like a tall order, boy, when you think of all humanity and, some of these holiday songs that speak of just a peace on earth, and you think, tall order, then you think of it from the cosmic perspective. And you look at the relevance of sort of humanity's presence on earth from a cosmic perspective. And you think of that, basically saying that the Dalai Lama says, without love and compassion, humanity can't survive. So we're often looking from our perspective out And it's sometimes humbling to look at the cosmic perspective down and saying, as we've said many times, it's on us to get it together. It's our responsibility. From the cosmic perspective, we're kind of a little blip in the whole scheme of things, humanity on Earth as the cosmos knows it. So it's really a responsibility that we have to take on. It's that important.
Absolutely, and it's interesting. It reminds me of the readings that I've done of the work of Lynn Margulis, a biologist, and she focuses on microbes, on bacteria, on the smallest organisms, and when we go through these periods of decimation, it's those small organisms that survive and rebuild, and it's humbling to think that they combine to create a human body, but we are really, unless we can get our act together, we're a detriment to the world community. We're not really a helpful part. So hopefully this is something that we can take seriously and really start understanding that every person's experience is our experience. And the part of that that's hard for me, Steve, is on the one hand, for me personally, I can feel my way into the experience of the persons seeking asylum at the southern border, trying to get in, being repelled, having numbers written on their arms, which raises memories of Nazi prison camps and that kind of thing. My family have been refugees, so I can experience that pretty easily. It's much more difficult for me to experience why it is that someone would become very prejudiced and very hard-hearted towards other people. And yet I'm connected to those people too. They are my relatives as well. And I don't have to condone how they feel or how they act, but I do need to recognize that we are all in this together.
Right. And this is where, when you were just talking about Lynn Margulis and we were talking about boundaries in the first segment of the show, it's that we stop at humanity. We often stop at ourselves, not just at humanity, of recognizing as and you even said somewhere in the Einstein quote, it was that it creates a prison because the boundary stops at me often. And we can see that, just as Lynn Margulis talks about the bacteria coming together that eventually form a human being, well, we have got to come together to form a humanity that works, that can survive on this earth and actually help it flourish, help it grow, help it evolve. But when we stop at us and we realize, well, we're simply battling each other, but yet we're one and the same. We are part of the same organism. We are part of the same group that we can't see just with our common sense, that actually will lead to a breakdown of humanity if we are constantly pushing away each other, labeling each other, in fear of each other, in competition with each other, that we just, we're unable to move beyond that boundary that is the self to see that it moves to populations, to communities, to ecosystems, and beyond, to a whole galaxy of what's our part and where are we. It's why I mentioned the heart. The heart is responsible on esoteric terms, on subtle and physiological, in both of those ways. The heart is responsible for the interconnectedness. It rules our immune system, our thymus gland, which produces our white blood cells, which what is a perfected immune system or a healthy immune system is one where everything's getting along, right? When something comes in and is challenging, the heart center as a chakra and the immune system kicks in to try to bring balance again. But we do that amongst ourselves. We create that imbalance.
Yes,
yeah.
and we can think of the challenges that we see, that we hear reported on the news among humans as being parallel to diseases that happen within the body between cells and organs that aren't getting along together. I just wanted to draw this out in one other way, because if we take seriously the fact that we are all part of the same energy field, and if we recognize that compassion is one of those basic feelings, as a basic energy that we want to express, then when we are confronted with people who are coming from a very different ethical place, who feel it's just fine to harm others, then we need to think about, so what is the role of compassion there? Well, one of the roles is, I think, is to keep them from creating more harm, to block the possibility of harm, because ultimately that's going to rebound on them. So we're, or the Dalai Lama would say, we prevent them from creating more negative karma. But I think it's also important, and I don't do this as often as I feel would be useful, to examine what it is they're doing. How can they separate themselves so much from others' experience? How can they deny the connection so much? And then examine my own life, and are there any ways in which I'm doing that also?
Yes.
So it becomes a learning environment for me. It's not just them. They've got no moral compass, or they're bad in this way, or whatever. But again, we are all in this together. So taking seriously our responsibility to learn how to express and action compassion.
Yeah, it's that those people have to be a part of the expansion and inclusion. And whether that is, as you say, putting a stop to it, that is actually keeping them from harming themselves as well. So it is compassionate in that way, but then, yes, also looking at ways which we so quickly want to point the finger. Dorothy, I'm seeing we're already at another break. I have a few thoughts, so after this break, I'll share them with you, with the audience.
Hi, I'm Barbara Scheidiger, clinical hypnotherapist and founder of Swiss Hypnotherapy. My goal is to help you to reach your goal, and this is a tip with purpose. Everybody wants it, and nobody has enough of it. But it comes to a point that you have to tell yourself, I can get more. I want more. I deserve more. I'm talking about money. More money, more money, more money. That's what people want. But what has to be done? Your thoughts have to change. That you can allow yourself to tell yourself, I have money and I want more money. How much money? What is it? Put it out there. Write it down. What would you do with more money? How would you feel to have more money? I hope this tip helps you going through the day today. You can reach me at 323-999-4775 or at my website at swisshypnotherapy.com.
Are you your story? Or can you change your story? Can you change what you believe to be true about yourself and your circumstances as part of your healing journey? What if you were to change your expectations? What if you were to invite ease and cooperation into every day and then step back and see what happens? It might just be easier. I'm Megan Edge, and I hope that you'll join me on my new radio show, Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host Dr. Pat on Transformation Talk Radio. I look forward to seeing you there.
Want to find out more about Megan Edge? Visit her website at meganedge.ca.
Hi, I'm Steve Kramer of Spirit Fire Radio, and I believe that meditation changes everything. It leads us in the direction of greater well-being, and that's a fact. I struggled with meditation for years. I understood the principles, but I found it hard to incorporate them into my everyday life. Spirit Fire's meditation practice changed that. It's called the Practice of Living Awareness, and it's taught in 14 steps. These are 14 tools that I can use in any moment, on and off the cushion. Steps like smile, flow, and ground of being support my clarity of mind while I'm navigating the ups and downs of modern life. That's why it's called the Practice of Living Awareness. If you'd like to add meditation to your daily experience, the Practice of Living Awareness is free, online, and it's suited for any level of practitioner. Visit spiritfire.com for more information. And be sure to check out Spirit Fire's meditation retreats in Western Massachusetts. It's all there at spiritfire.com. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. Dorothy and I are so happy you're with us still. Dorothy, was just thinking, this whole idea of boundaries, we talk about that so often in a social context in ways that boundaries and limitations, ways in which we push against, and ways in which we can open that up. When you think of an open heart, you think of, boundless, capacity for compassion. But it makes me think of looking at oneself and asking, what is important to you? And is it that appearance, intelligence, wealth, one's strength, your status, how many likes you get on Facebook? If those are what's really important to you, and trying to do this without judgment, but that has a tendency to create attachment, dissatisfaction, jealousy, greed, envy, covetousness, those qualities when we are really focused on these sort of that which we can acquire, or the material world, on our appearance, on how others see us, when it is constantly being reflected back to us and to ourselves, which we see so much as a result of social media these days. And I think it's a necessary component of sort of growing into oneself, of getting to know oneself. But if that is really important to you, then one would ask, can you do that for the sake of something being beautiful? Beauty for the sake of appreciating beauty without desire or without comparison or competition. They all sort of lead to a duality of others and myself, of comparison. But if you ask, is what's important to me? Is it harmony, cooperation, sharing, reverence, creativity? It's like spiraling it up to perhaps going into the new year and saying, perhaps I will expand those qualities that I would like to, engender, or that I would like to generate, and that it's not looking at I'm going to make more money this year, or I'm going to go to the gym more this year, but perhaps it's something that's got a bit of largesse to it. Like, could I generate harmony in every situation I'm in, at the grocery store? Is harmony going to be important to me this year? Cooperating, sharing, being creative, those are unlimited. Those feel cosmic to me. They support growth. They're not contained. So as you say, looking at ourselves and seeing if there's limitation, or if there's harm, or actually if it's creating growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, what occurs to me, Steve, as we're having this particular conversation, is I think back to the show that we did where we talked about the 4 gates with regard to speech. So before you say something, you think, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it the right time? So there are those criteria that you use before you speak. And I'm wondering, and I would put this out to our audience, what are the gates? What would we say are the gates for right action, for compassionate choices in action? Any thoughts?
Well, as you said them, I thought in speaking of actions or what's important to me in terms of my activities or what I focus on, or my actions, is it kind? Certainly, we could ask ourselves that before we act. Is it necessary? Certainly, we could ask ourselves that. Is it true? So I guess, Dorothy, what I would say is it aligned with sort of cooperative or harmonious creation? How does that work?
Well, yeah, or I think that there are some slightly different dimensions. Like I would add inclusive.
Ah,
right?
Beautiful. Yes.
One of the ways that we express a compassionate understanding of our all being part of one life is that the way in which we act does not exclude others. And I don't know, there may be others, but that's the one that comes to me right now.
Yeah, and even is it proactive? I mean, that's maybe a big one, but certainly we would like to think that our actions have meaning, they're purposeful, and that they're actually building something as opposed to breaking something down, unless that breaking something down is going to lead to building something. It gets complex, but I love that idea of, is it inclusive? That's quite wonderful. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Dorothy, it just comes down to this idea of when we look at the universe as being limited, or when we don't recognize abundance, it's just so hard then to reach out to another and feel that connection if you're putting that limited perspective, if that's your point of departure. So it's just always so important to realize once again that there's enough for everybody. And it just helps with realizing that we are all in this together. And again, it's when we start to create those boundaries and those separations that there's no space for compassion.
Well, I find it interesting, what you were saying about building and then ending if you need to, but kind of downplaying the ending part. And I just want to comment on that for a moment. My mother was a nutritionist, and one of the images that she gave me, which I thought was so useful, was if the body does not eliminate, you die. You have to be able to end, to outflow. You can't just always take in and gorge yourself. And if we think of this, I'd like to take this opportunity to just mention to our audience that the School for Esoteric Studies has a series of white papers on inclusive social action. And I think we'll be talking more about this in January. But how is it that we limit harm that is happening? How is it that we end harm that is happening without creating more divisiveness? It's a challenging issue. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to reach out in a positive and loving way, but we also need to have compassionate ways of stopping, of saying no further. This is not okay.
Yes.
And I think the clue is compassion. I think I've shared this with our audience once before, but I heard the Dalai Lama speak several years ago in Vancouver, and one of the audience questions to him was, is it ever okay to kill someone? And I'm sure the audience was expecting him to say no, and he said yes. And he said, in order to limit the harm that the person is doing, but it must be done with compassion. It cannot be done with vengeance or revenge or that kind of thing. It has to be done compassionately.
Right. Again, recognizing that being who is inflicting harm and divisiveness is actually out of alignment, out of cosmic alignment. And they're doing harm to themselves and to to other people that they come in contact with. So the compassion comes in realizing that they are a part as well of this, this life form that is humanity, that is life on Earth, that is, from a cosmic perspective, we're in it with them as well. And so it is, the compassion comes in there, just to reiterate. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a wonderful section in one of Gary Zukav's books. He wrote The Seat of the Soul, which is just a wonderful book. We often talk about esotericism. I find that it is the most Seat of the Soul being one of the most accessible books on the ways in which the personality and the soul relate to each other, and less of esoteric ideas. But he's got a series called The Heart of the Soul and the Mind of the Soul. And in it, he talks about collectives, of how we identify with collectives. We're either male, we're female, we're Christian, we're American, we're a son, we're a daughter, a wife, a husband, we're divorced, we're a Democrat, we're an artist, we're, a baker, we're a celebrity, we're a human being. And so it's, as individuals identify to these collectives, the more difference there is between the collectives, it creates fear and it creates boundaries. And so we have to watch when we create or identify with these collectives that, we could be a male Christian business keeper that could have a very different identity than the combinations go on, but it's how we identify ourselves and watching when those collectives become too small. And he says basically in the book that we must see each other as human beings, as not unlike ourselves. That it is fear of the other, that keeps us apart, and that it's not language, skin color, belief, or our trade. It's the fear of the other, and it's through clinging too tightly to these collectives. So we're all learning to sort of have compassion and to think in group terms, to be active in the group capacity. But we have to watch where those boundaries are. It can't just be. It has to be, I believe, really on the scale of humanity. And so it's to push yourself to move beyond those various collectives that we may not even realize are separating us. So how do we identify with ourselves?
Well, and to me, in my experience of having lived in large cities and lived in small communities, one of the potential positives about living in a smaller community or recognizing a neighborhood within a very large city, is that you start to experience people in a number of different collectives, right? When we see people only in one role, only in one category, and that's a category that we don't necessarily identify with, then that difference can become exacerbated. We can blow it up. But if that same person is with us in 2 or 3 of the groups that we identify with, and then not in another 2 or 3 of the groups that we identify with, we have a number of ways of connecting with them. And we start to see people, instead of unidimensional, as being complex and interesting. And it can stimulate our curiosity about other people. We At the base, to me, we are all part of the one life. We're all part of a whole, but we are all unique parts of it. And so we do have things that are different from other people. But as you said, the issue is not to fear the difference, but to be excited by the difference, to embrace the difference.
And realize that they are just different combinations within this larger group that is humanity.
That's right. Or like with my partner, who has a very different way of viewing the world from an artistic perspective. Listening gives me, adds so much to my experience that I wouldn't have if I wasn't interacting with someone who was coming, recognizing that they're coming from this very different perspective.
Yes. And being interested in it, as you say.
Curiosity.
Yes. Curiosity. Beautiful thing. Sense of wonder. It's one of my favorite words, wonder. Dorothy, we're at our break, and we will be back after these messages.
The To find answers to life's questions, you need to look within yourself. Dr. Glenna Rice brings your questionable conversations on Transformation Talk Radio each month. Tune in each month for insight into how you can live up to your full potential. Dr. Glenna is a physical therapist, certified Access Consciousness, and Access Body Class facilitator. How does it get any better than this? For more information on Dr. Glenna Rice and her work, visit glennarice.com.
Wow. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. This is Talk Radio to Thrive By. I'm telling you, I got to pinch myself some days because when each of us gets called to do something that we so not thought was in our wheelhouse to do for a purpose that's so much greater than us, we get to show up and shine.
If you would like to show up and shine on the Dr. Pat Show as a co-host or sponsor, send us an email to inspire@thedrpatshow.com.
Love Living Radio Ignite Your Whole Being with Emily Perkins is a show for those looking to explore the sparkling magnificence of their inner selves. Tune in every second and fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific as Emily sheds a radiant light of love on the beauty and power that resides within you. Discussing love in all its forms through conversations that provoke awareness, curiosity, and expansion, Emily shares the unlimited power of love. For more information or to listen to this show, visit loveliving.holistics.com.
Practice living in wholeness with the body tune-up. 6 classes for $89 designed for radical self-healing and self-regeneration. Heal the deepest root of any challenge. The mental body was programmed in negativity, not good enough, separate from source. You're too much, you'll never make it. The emotional body holds all the pain and trauma of emotional suppression, all the pain from this life and lives past. The spiritual body is the place you connect with your higher power, your higher self, with the image and likeness of the One. The physical body houses and expresses the other 3 bodies every day. Go to CorneliaStephanie.com. Evolve, become a practitioner. We need to heal, integrate, and bring into wholeness and harmony the physical body, addressing all the other bodies in order to live in our true, authentic nature.
Living Lighter Radio with Jason and Patricia. We have an ecosystem approach to your life. Tune in weekly every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio as we, Jason and Patricia, discuss what's truly holding you back. We offer you the tools you need to reach your goals and at the same time be living lighter. For more information about Living Lighter, visit www.livinglighter.org.
Welcome back, listeners, to Spirit Fire Radio. We are talking about compassion, being a cosmic citizen and embracing compassion. Dorothy, can I put you on the spot? So what would you say what is the purpose of compassion?
Well, I think the purpose of, it's interesting that you use the word purpose. To me, it is. And it is the recognition that we are all in this together, that we are all one, that we are all connected, that we are all actually dealing with the same human issues. We may come at them from different perspectives. We may bring with us different backgrounds, different sets of skills, but in the end, we are all human.
So it's actually a result.
We're talking about humanity. Mm-hmm.
It's actually a result of that interconnectedness, and it is just a feeling into it and then a choosing to act upon it, which means if there is a need to bring balance to a situation or help another person, or to just create even a better world, whatever, a better moment, a better situation, a better experience, a better world, that is almost natural. The compassion is as you say, it's an is. So it's almost as, rather than does it have a purpose, that its place is a result of that, of our interconnectedness. I just thinking about ways in why it is that criticism in this day and age. You look at the news, and it's actually not fact. It's just a table of 6 people all giving their opinion. An opinion usually means that I've got one and you've got another. It leads to criticism and often, sort of a battle of ideas. And it seems we just are pushing that more and more these days. We're around it more than ever. With social media, it makes me think of that as well. So we've often said, that criticism is quite harmful, that it is a poison almost. It creates separativeness, really like nothing else. So just to bring that up as something that really gets in the way of feeling or sensing that is compassion.
Well, I'd have to differ just a little bit, because I think that there's also, along with criticism, we need to be very careful about generalizations. In the news shows that you're referring to, sometimes the benefit is people actually bringing up facts, data that's being overlooked or that's being distorted. And one of the important things in that whole environment, and we don't see it so much on social media, is being very clear about when we are referring to something that is factual, proven data, and when it is our interpretation and our opinion about something. And we can have opinions. We just need to own them and say that that's the case. Whereas we have some people, very prominent, who blur the line between fact and opinion or personal self-interest, and that's where it becomes, really problematic. The thing about criticism, to me, because it is easy to fall into, is it is separative. If I criticize you, Steve, if I say you're wrong on that, without first trying to understand what you were trying to express and where you were coming from, then I'm setting myself up as better than you in some kind of way. Like I have a clearer perspective. Whatever. If I say, I see this a little bit differently. This is, in other words, this is my perspective. It's not that you're wrong. And runs right through the ageless wisdom, right? That criticism is one of the most divisive energies, and we really have to learn to not do it. Yes,
indeed. You can just feel into it, that it just limits our access to compassion. It immediately sets you apart and puts you in resistance to, in a way, and in competition to. As you say, if you approach something as, perhaps, here is how I see the situation, it becomes a conversation. So then it becomes co-creative in a way, rather than combative. Yeah, and I hope I was not sounding like I was saying all news out there is just opinion and not fact. I heard you. I thought, oh, Steve, when you re-listen to this show, listen to Steve, and
I hope that I wasn't being critical in the way that I was myself then criticizing.
No, very good.
Tricky.
Yeah, it's just that we seem to all have access to an opinion these days, and to a platform to speak that opinion, and we just have to watch the manner, and that's where the gates come in. Is it kind? Is it true? Is it true? And is it necessary?
True. Yes. Yeah. And I think another thing that would be really good to mention here before the end of the show is the whole issue of forgiveness. One of the important aspects of forgiving is not judging the other person, which is part of what compassion is about. But we did a whole show on forgiveness, and it's really important to me to make the distinction that forgiving does not mean that you are pardoning the other person, that you're saying it's just fine that you did that, or, we'll just let it go. What you're saying is, I recognize that this was part of the human experience, and I am releasing the angry energy that I have tied up with this, because I want to be able to move on. And forgiveness is really for ourselves, to be able to detach from what happened, as opposed to remaining controlled by the experience. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and I really appreciate what you said in that, then if we move that toward compassion for others, and even compassion towards someone that we have forgiven or that they go together, it doesn't mean I've got compassion for you and that means I'm going to help you, or I am going to be in, I'm going to be in relation with you again. But compassion can be just that release itself. And I am going to release you from the anger and from the judgment and from the blame. And that is having compassion, that it doesn't necessarily mean, as we were talking about, there's an active component. It doesn't mean somebody wronged you, you forgive them, and that means you should be in relation with them again. No, compassion can be there without that relation. Yeah.
And it may be that what I choose to do is I forgive you, and what I'm going to do is to understand how such behavior could happen. And I'm going to work on the roots of that behavior. Not with you, nothing to do with you, but just so that it never happens to anybody else again.
Yeah. And it comes down to goodwill, Dorothy. We actually have to wrap this up. We've got less than a minute. But just to say that, compassion leads generally to goodwill. Yeah, I mean, it leads to, if we all were acting compassionately, the common good would be taken care of, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A few words for you on that? And we'll
I would just say that, when we think about compassion, we're usually thinking about our individual relationships with people. And when we think about goodwill, we're usually thinking about the whole, the common good. But they're cousins, we might say, or they're relatives in terms of the energy that they generate. And in general, compassion is our expression of being part of the one life.
It supports that it is cosmic in nature, even though it may be in relation to an individual, that the greater good is receiving it in the cosmic sense. Wonderful, Dorothy. That was the fastest show ever. Listeners, we hope you'll join us next week. We're going to wrap up our month on the Cosmic Citizen, and we're going to talk about cosmic relations and hope. Wonderful for the new year. Join us. Thanks so much, Dorothy.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Fire Radio. Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern for your weekly guide to purposeful living and practical spirituality. Join hosts Steve Kramer and Dorothy Riddle as they shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in your everyday life. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. To learn more, visit spiritfireradio.com.